Claire had always been drawn to forgotten things, dusty relics, creaking furniture, and fragile antiques that held whispers of the past. When she heard about an estate sale in the countryside, she couldn't resist. The old mansion loomed with history, every corner heavy with silence. As she wandered through the parlor, something caught her eye. A porcelain doll sitting upright in a faded velvet chair. It wore a hand-stitched dress, yellowed with age, and had unsettlingly lifelike blue glass eyes. Though cracked slightly at the cheek, it looked remarkably well preserved. The tag read, "Rare, late 1800s, not for children." The air felt colder near it, but Claire brushed off the chill. There was something captivating about the doll, an elegance, or maybe a sadness. Ignoring a twinge of unease, she bought it for far less than it was worth. She didn't know it yet, but the doll wasn't waiting to be owned. It was waiting to be released. Claire placed the doll carefully on a shelf in her study, among old books and curiosities she'd collected over the years. It sat there, perfectly still, with its dainty porcelain hands folded in its lap and that unnerving stare fixed straight ahead. At first, she dismissed the feeling as her imagination, but over the next few days, she began to notice something strange. No matter where she stood, by the window, near the door, or across the room, the doll's glassy blue eyes always seemed to be locked onto her. She tried shifting its position, turning its head slightly away, yet somehow, the next time she entered the room, the eyes were facing her again. She'd catch herself glancing over her shoulder, convinced something had moved. A cold weight settled in her chest each time their eyes met. It didn't feel like she was looking at the doll. It felt like the doll was watching her. Within a week of bringing the doll home, the atmosphere in Claire's house began to shift. It started subtly, lights flickering without reason, cold drafts sweeping through rooms with no open windows. One night, Claire awoke to the sound of faint giggling, soft and childlike, echoing from the hallway. When she got up to investigate, she found nothing except the doll, which had somehow moved from the study to the living room couch. Her cat refused to enter the study now, hissing at the doll and fleeing the moment she stepped near it. Doors she'd locked were found ajar. Items disappeared, only to be discovered in odd places. The kitchen knives stacked neatly beneath her bed, her grandfather's watch ticking beside the doll's feet. At first, she thought she was sleepwalking, stressed, maybe losing touch. But deep down, a growing dread told her otherwise. The house wasn't acting strange. Something inside it was. Desperate for answers, Claire dove into research. She scoured antique forums, old auction records, and local historical archives, trying to trace the origins of the doll. After days of digging, she uncovered a name etched faintly beneath the doll's porcelain base. E. Grinwald. A shiver ran down her spine. Elias Grinwald was no ordinary toy maker. In the late 1800s, he was famous for crafting disturbingly lifelike dolls, each one said to possess a soulful gaze. But his reputation twisted into legend after a series of disturbing events. Children who received his dolls reportedly became sick, withdrawn. Some vanished entirely. Grinwald himself disappeared one winter night without a trace. His final workshop was found locked from the inside, with scorch marks on the walls and strange symbols carved into the floorboards. Authorities abandoned the investigation. His dolls were recalled, destroyed, except apparently for this one. Claire realized she hadn't bought just a doll. She had invited a legacy of darkness into her home. The first time Claire noticed the doll had moved, she thought she was simply forgetful. She clearly remembered placing it on the top shelf of her bookcase, but the next morning, it was sitting on the armchair by the fireplace, hands folded neatly in its lap, gaze fixed toward her bedroom door. The second night, she found it on the kitchen counter, one tiny porcelain hand resting on the knife block. Determined to prove it to herself, Claire set up her phone to record overnight. What she saw chilled her blood. Around 2:37 a.m., the doll's head turned slowly, smoothly toward the camera. Then it stood. Its joints creaked, but it moved with eerie precision, stepping off the shelf and walking across the room until it was just inches from the lens. The screen went black. That night, Claire didn't sleep. She kept every light on and locked the doll in the closet. By morning, it was back on the shelf, smiling. Claire didn't notice it at first, just subtle changes in the people around her. Her sister Emily came over for tea and paused when she saw the doll on the shelf. She muttered, but her voice sounded distant. Minutes later, she was staring blankly out the window, eyes unfocused, lips twitching in a faint smile. Claire had to call her name 3 times before she responded, confused, like waking from a dream. Over the next week, more unsettling behavior followed. Her best friend Ben grew irritable, snapping at Claire during a casual chat, then apologizing immediately, bewildered by his outburst. Her neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, stopped by to drop off mail and froze in place when she glanced at the doll. Her eyes welled with tears and she whispered, "She's still hungry," before quickly leaving. Something about the doll was affecting people, changing them. Claire began to wonder if she was next. Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the doll wasn't just haunted, it was alive. Desperate for answers, she examined it again. again, this time more carefully. As she tilted the doll backward, she noticed a small, nearly invisible seam beneath the lace lining of its dress. Curious, she unstitched the seam, revealing a hollow cavity inside the porcelain torso. Tucked within was a brittle, yellowed letter, folded tightly and sealed with a faded wax stamp bearing the initials EG. With trembling hands, she unfolded it. The handwriting was frantic, the ink smudged by age and panic. It was a warning, written by Elias Grinwald himself. The letter spoke of a ritual gone wrong, a spirit trapped within the doll, and a curse that could only be sustained by feeding it a soul every generation. It watches, it waits, it chooses. The final line read. Claire's breath caught. The doll hadn't simply arrived in her life, it had selected her. After reading the cursed letter, Claire began noticing something even more unsettling. The doll was trying to communicate. Each morning, new patterns appeared around the house. Alphabet magnets on the fridge rearranged into strange, broken phrases like, I see you, or let me out. One night, she found her bedroom mirror fogged over despite no humidity. Scrawled in the condensation were the words, "You're mine." Voices began whispering in the static of her radio, mimicking her own speech from hours before. When she played back a voice memo on her phone, a childlike voice layered beneath hers said, "Don't leave me." Claire tried asking questions aloud, feeling insane, but sometimes the doll responded. A book would fall, a light would flicker, the door would creak open. It wasn't just haunting her, it was reaching out. But for what purpose? A warning? A plea? Or something far more sinister? Desperation set in as Claire realized the doll wasn't just tormenting her, it was unkillable. One night, she placed it in the fireplace and set the logs ablaze, watching as flames danced around its porcelain form. But when she returned hours later, the fire had died, and the doll sat untouched, its dress barely singed. A sickening smile seemed to stretch across its cracked lips. She tried again, hammering it with a mallet until it cracked and crumbled. By morning, the pieces were neatly stacked on the mantel, whole once more, as if the damage had never happened. Next, she tried drowning it. She filled her bathtub with water, sinking the doll into the depths. When she checked hours later, it was dry, sitting on her bathroom sink, as pristine as before. Whatever force was behind the doll was unyielding. Every attempt to destroy it only made Claire feel more powerless. The doll had its own will, and it wasn't leaving. As the days blurred into one another, Claire's grip on reality started to slip. The doll's presence in her life had become suffocating. One evening, as she stared into its haunting eyes, she finally understood. The doll didn't just want to watch her, it needed her. Its empty stare was not one of curiosity, but hunger. The whispers had been clearer now, softer, almost coaxing. "Let me in." In a final, desperate attempt, Claire demanded answers. "What do you want from me?" she whispered, trembling. The lights flickered, and a low, guttural voice echoed from the doll's lips. "I am your past, your future. I am a vessel." Claire's heart raced as the room grew cold. The doll's eyes glowed faintly. It needed her soul to survive, to take over her body, to erase her existence, and to inhabit her. Suddenly, Claire realized the doll had been choosing her all along, not just as a possession, but as a prison. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more spine-chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Leave a comment below telling me your thoughts on the haunted doll. Do you believe it's possible for objects to have a life of their own? And if you dare, turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next terrifying adventure. The doll is watching, and it might just choose you next.